Google recently opened up a program for learning specific skills, such as a data scientist certificate program. Once students complete these certificates, that then opens the door for them to apply for jobs at Google. So how can applying a funds of knowledge concept or lens prepare institutions of higher education to respond to disruptive efforts like these to unbundle higher education? And is this a challenge that we are prepared to meet? And how can funds of knowledge help us better understand what's going on with these types of efforts that we're seeing, for example, from Google?
Thank you, Craig, and thank you for the question. I know these are tough questions. The audience is right on, spot on, because these are things that are happening. Students are questioning the value of attending higher education. They're constantly asking, is it worth my time? Is it worth going through so much that they have to give up in order to get their credentials? And that's response to part of that. We're not making meaningful connections with them. So they're seeking for other alternatives. So if we don't, again, engage in these funds of knowledge approach of learning with students, from students, to make these meaningful connections, they will keep asking themselves, is it worth it or not? And if it's not, they're going to look for other alternatives. So that's one of the reasons why we think this approach is highly needed, and the conversations need to start happening more and more often across all institutions, in institutional research offices, among counselors. I think this has to be, again, a way to invite all of us to talk to each other more.
I would add one comment to Cecilia's. Not only are we perhaps not meeting the needs of the student who's saying, do I really need this full-on degree to do what I want to do? I would suggest that in the example that you gave us, Google has decided that whatever degrees applicants are coming to them with is not what they're looking for. And thus they've started their own training to meet their needs. So it's conversations with employers as well as with our students. I know there's a session coming up on badging and micro-credentialing. I think that has some merit that can address this question as well. So that should be a good one for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good kind of reminder that on Monday we'll be hearing more about micro-credentialing and badging and how that is an evolving tool and strategy in higher education. So related to your point, Sally, about bringing employers to the table and engaging employers, obviously they're sort of, in a way, the consumers of our credentials. From the student's perspective, they're looking to get employed, and the credentials and the knowledge and skills that they're learning at college and at the university are their key to that employment and in moving up the ladder. So we have a question from Johanna Camacho. She asks how we can get human resources offices to agree on using students' work history and valuing students' work history, and getting organizations such as the Society for Human Resource Managers to buy into these concepts. Any thoughts on bringing HR to the table on all this?
Sally, you want to attack it first, or you want me to start?
You go right ahead. That's a big one.
I think more than human resources is, I mean, clearly human resources, but business offices, the college, the leadership has to be clear that perhaps this should be an institutional strategy to say, hey, first we need to learn where our students are right now. What is it that they bring to the college? Fill out as part of your college application. I'm envisioning this world in which we ask them, please grab every type of job that you've had, and then we can go and grab, we have technology now, labor market, very sophisticated people there that are willing to partner with educational institutions to say, hey, these are the skills. We can maybe place students and offering them programs and courses and just validating those skills initially to say, this is what you bring to the college. So now let faculty use that to talk about curriculum. Let's career centers grab some of that information too and say, hey, what are the questions that we should be asking students based on what they have and who they are? That's in my visionary world where we need to be moving forward. And it involves business offices, it involves career centers, it involves counselors, it involves faculty. It's a really reimagining how we are, as higher education institutions, are operating, and how we make sure we tell the students, hey, you come already knowing so much. We want to take you to a whole nother level, but we recognize that you bring all these things.
My addition to Cecilia's answer would be my experience over the last 3 years building an apprenticeship program for health, which is a very non-traditional sector for apprenticeships. And it's been really, really rewarding, as well as eye-opening, how much employers, as an extension of their HR offices, really do care, and they really want to have their voice heard. And I would also add, I've experienced a great level of frustration from employers who feel that for the last 20 years, they have not been heard, and that academia has led the way and we have said what they needed. So the times are changing and the conversations are ripe, and those who have the ability to connect with employers and their HR representatives, it's a really, really fruitful conversation if both parties can be open to listening.
Wonderful. We have a question from Stephanie Droker asking about how we can articulate the value of a degree that includes students' cultural experiences and histories. And I'm going to just throw in a connection to some earlier comments in the chat thread about credit for prior learning and competency-based education. Do you see those as avenues to connect students' funds of knowledge to an accredited degree that is recognized, a recognized credential widely with employers and in general?
Definitely. I think these conversations are linked. And what I so appreciate what Sally said before, that employers are part of the equation. The private sector needs to be more in conversation with institutions. And let me just say that if there's one sector, in my opinion, this is my very personal opinion, okay, knowing that I work for a 4-year sector, but if there's a sector that has a potential to really innovate, to really serve students from an equity-minded perspective, is the community college sector. For me, right now, what we're experiencing with COVID-19, what we see, we need, in the case of California, we need a new master plan. We need to give community colleges a much more robust set of funding, of course, but also they have the capacity to innovate, to do more of these easier and faster. The 4-year sector, I think, in my opinion, is too slow. And you guys are educating most of our marginalized students that desperately need this validation and this credit for prior learning. And I guess it's the validation of who they are and all the wealth that they bring to the college setting.
I thank Cecilia for that recognition of the role that community colleges have, and the fact that we do have the ability to perhaps be a bit more nimble than our 4-year colleagues and those institutions. I would suggest, or maybe I'm going to share my vision, my hope. The Hawaii community colleges have really struggled for 30 years on how to make prior learning assessment work. We make attempts every couple of years. We get bogged down in bureaucracy and disconnects between each other on how to assess that. I'm going to suggest that the monster that we are now dealing with in Hawaii, as well as some of our California, I'm sure in different regions, but Hawaii across the islands, because of our strong dependence on tourism, and we have no tourists now. So our displaced worker problem is a tsunami, an absolute tsunami. And those are people that are bringing just incredible, rich work histories and other experiences to the table. And now is the time. If we're going to pull this off here in Hawaii for credit for prior learning, now is when we need to do it, because we have thousands of people who could benefit if we could figure out how to make that work and give them that credit so that they can recraft their careers or their professions and move forward.
I agree, Sally. I think COVID-19 is, and the economic catastrophe that is in front of us, the way for economic recovery has to involve community colleges and has to involve all navigating and validating the work histories of people and helping them reach to different careers, to different ways of doing and working, but it has to be first that recognition. So I think definitely that there's momentum right now to do that.